Hi, my name is Garrett, and I'm a project consultant with August Roofing and Solar, and today we're going to be looking at a roof inspection I did in Topanga Canyon. I'm over here in Los Angeles. You know, we have a roof with a couple different material types on it. It's an older home, has some sort of different add-ons and whatnot. Right here, you can see they have sort of a synthetic multi-width material. Right here, I was going up the roof, and basically I noticed that they have this, it's kind of like a synthetic plastic material, often used to kind of mimic some wood shake or different types of other roofing materials. What's kind of interesting about the section that we're looking at right here is it's actually a really low sloped pitch. I noticed that they use the synthetic, which based off of like manufacturer's recommendations on this would be improper. With how low sloped that pitch is, there's too many seams essentially in the material, as opposed to like a flat roofing material that is pretty much rolls and comes with less seams in it. When I say it's a multi-width, basically, if you were to look at the shingles that the installers are putting in, they all come in different widths. So you have some that are a little bit wider, some that are more narrow. As they install them, they kind of stagger them and do different things to kind of give it more of an interesting look. As far as why this homeowner decided to do synthetic on their home was due to the fire rating that they had on this certain synthetic product. It's a good fire rated product, and so with them being in the canyons, they were extra cautious about that. There's no head flashing in front of the windows there, is the only thing. Whenever I call out the head flashing, basically it's an L-shaped piece of flashing that covers up the fasteners where the roof meets a head wall. Right here, it's the window and you have the sill. Basically, where the material is coming up, we still need to nail in those shingles in order to install them, but we don't want to leave kind of exposed nail heads on the roof, and so the head flashing covers up those nail heads. And typically, head flashing is something that's already present. It's embedded into the stucco or whatever the building material is. It's super important to have that. You see it on a lot of homes where there's add-ons and everything, that was like a detail that gets skipped sometimes. It's a low slope roof. Probably about a 212. Right there, when I say the 212, that's what I mean. It's low sloped. Basically, whenever we distinguish different pitches, it's basically a rise over run type of figure. And so if you were to go over 12 inches, the rise would be 2 inches. If it was a steeper pitch, like say a 9 over 12, if you were to go over 12 inches, it would rise 9 inches. So it's a much steeper roof essentially. Just a way to distinguish specifically how steep the roof is. This roof is really fun because they had so many different types of materials on it. Truly a work in progress that they were doing. They actually had a roofer who had started the project for them, and they were installing the synthetic, and it turned out that they ran out of material and they had to order more material, but the kind of material that they wanted was on back order and they couldn't get it for a really long time. It was shipped from far away, and the roofer that they had essentially doing the job originally kind of gave up on the project. He ended up walking away from the job, and they were left with a project that was half done and still needed someone to, come back and finish the rest of it. And so that's why when we look at their roof, they have synthetic, they have cow shake, which is like a fiber cement material that's no longer manufactured anymore. They also had wood shake, and that's like probably what was originally on the home, which obviously isn't great with fire rating. So that's a big reason to replace that stuff, especially in California. You can see they have fiber cement that's just been through it. It's all cracking and a lot of debris. So the big issue with fiber cement is how brittle it is. And so that's a big drawback that, if anyone were to walk on a fiber cement roof, it generally will crack and break. The biggest manufacturer that I know of was Cow Shake, and they had a whole lawsuit. The product was discontinued. It's not even a material that we use on roofs anymore. Anytime we see a fiber cement roof, really the only thing you can do is essentially replace it with a new material. Kind of an interesting product that didn't end up working out. And then, coming up here, you can see some wood shake. In this section, you can actually see in front of the window what a head flashing should look like. Granted, this one's been through it, it's corroded and rusted, it's just, a lot older. But essentially, it is that metal that just kind of comes out and covers the nail heads. And wood shake, it's truly what it is. It's actual wood shingles, sometimes cedar or different types of wood. But here in California, anyone who has a wood shake roof is generally considering replacing it, especially for fire rating, and then oftentimes insurance doesn't want to cover a home that has wood shake on it anymore. If you were to replace wood shake, you have a couple different options. It's going to be shingles or tile that people will go to. The only thing to consider with tile is that you cannot put a standard weight tile unless you were to reinforce the structure. Standard weight tile is definitely heavier than wood shake, and so anytime that you're replacing wood shake, if you were to put a heavier product on the roof so that you don't have structural issues, you would need to add more to the structure if you're going to put a heavyweight. The simple solution is to do a lightweight tile, and then there's also different asphalt composition shingles that you can put on that people will do.
Now when you come up here, it transitions into some more synthetic. You can see a pipe right here that's a little sunken in. You have this interesting pipe that just sticks up and bends out, getting into a section with some comp in it.
For this homeowner, they definitely had leaks in this area. It looked like they used some flat roofing material like torch down, which is like an asphalt-based product, as well as some shingles, and they're all kind of patched on top of the existing material. This is definitely what I'd consider to be like a Band-Aid type of fix. It seems as if they had a leak going on and they just needed to do something. That's kind of what we're seeing right here, especially with the tarps and everything. It's kind of a rough transition area on their roof because they have all these different pitches, like all these different roof planes and all these different pitches meeting in this one spot. And you can see over here where it meets the wall, there's water that's shedding directly to the structure in this one spot here. But they added essentially a cricket is what we call it, and it's basically a water diverter that's kind of pushing the water to the sides of any structure. It could be a fireplace chimney, it could be the home, and so I would consider this to be more of like a complicated area that could leak. I would say this isn't a great design with the fact that they have a pipe vent that comes right outside of the cricket. You can kind of see that they just used a bunch of sealant around the base of it to kind of, make sure it's waterproofing. Sealant isn't really a permanent thing. It cracks, it's kind of more of a maintenance item on a roof if you do have sealants around the pipes. Putting a pipe in this area where a lot of water is going to be traveling through is truly not a great design. Basically, all the water is going to be traveling through kind of the valley right there in the cricket. All the water that's splashing down is going to be hitting directly into the pipe, which is kind of bound to leak at some point. Definitely has to be something that you keep an eye on.
It's up around the skylight. So wood shake, no ridge cap on the shingles, but it looks like they just kind of patched in these shingles here to help with some leaks.
Ridge cap is essentially the shingle that goes on the peak. It kind of serves the same purpose that a head flashing does, but just when you get to the peak of the roof. You have two roof planes that meet at the peak. Basically, there's going to be nail heads on both sides where the shingles are attached. The ridge cap is what ultimately covers up everything, and with Owens Corning, it's called a deco ridge. It covers up the nail heads, and it's a thicker shingle, and so it makes it to where you're not going to have any leaks all on the peak of the roof.
So they got a tarp here, had some active leaks going on, and then when you look at the peak here, it's another type of fiber cement product.
It was definitely time to replace this roof. It was a long overdue type of thing, and you could tell it had been constantly worked on, like a section here, a section there, different times, obviously the patchwork, and ultimately it was prolonging the inevitable. And I'm sure that they spent a lot of time and energy and money on getting, these different sections done and different repairs. Granted, fiber cement, no one knew it was gonna completely fail and stuff. That's kind of just an unfortunate thing with the manufacturer on that. But like this Band-Aid work with the patching and everything, I know that they had to do something. Something's better than nothing sometimes. the money that was spent on that repair, and then the other repairs, the tarping, it all kind of it's adding up, and it's all not contributing to the true permanent solution, which was replacing the roof.
All these sections taken care of with the synthetic and replace it so it's all seamless. And with this cricket, we'd have to likely do some torch down. The pitch on this thing is a little shallow as well, so we're gonna have to look into that. You can see how this was just thrown on. All the caulking right here.
They have the torch down material, and it's all turned up is what we would call it, and it's kind of like running up the edge. If they didn't do anything, there would just be a gap, and that's like where water can come in. And so it looks like on this roof they did a bunch of sealant to kind of block it out. The more proper, better solution that we would look at doing is installing an actual counter flashing. A counter flashing basically is something that's mounted into the wall, or the brick in this case. It overlaps where the flat roofing material tucks underneath it. With us replacing this roof, we would tear everything off, install a counter flashing, and then tuck the flat roofing material underneath it and create a good overlap.
Hey, got a nickel on the roof.
I have no idea how that got up there.
So yeah, just thought this was a very interesting one to show you guys. We're looking to get it all seamless.
I had mentioned the different pitches on this roof, and it's important to know exactly the pitch of each roof plane. If it's 212 and under, that's whenever you need to look at using flat roofing material. If it's less than 412 and you're wanting to do composition shingles, there's an extra step that needs to be looked at, and that's basically installing 2 layers of the underlayment, or you just have to follow the manufacturer's recommendations. If the pitch is just one down, like say you thought it was a 312 but it's actually a 212, it can change the nature of like what you should be doing on that section of the roof. The reason for that is water travels at the rate that the slope is. So if it's a low sloped roof, water's just gonna travel off of it really slow. If you have a really steep roof, water's shedding off of it super fast. The lower sloped you get, the less seams that you want in the material. That's why it's super important to distinguish which, on that lower section that was just redone with the synthetic, the manufacturer would have not approved that.
Something I'll point out that I noticed is they have a roof to wall transition right here. And you can see it's just butted into the stucco. No flashing.
Right here, there's no counter flashing like I talked about, basically the flashing that goes on top, and there's no step flashing. Step flashing is like the base flashing. For tile roofs, it's called tile pan. It's a little bit different, but for like say a shingle roof, we use these little metal rectangles called tin shingles, like metal tin, and they're all bent on site and they all run down the edge, and then the top edge is covered by the counter flashing. Here, they put the material up to the wall, there's no counter flashing, and you don't see any base flashing either. They literally just use sealant again, which, as I said, it's just not a permanent solution. It's gonna crack. The likelihood of having a leak in an area like this, especially when it rains heavy, is pretty likely.
Kind of sealed. That's an issue where leaks can happen. Should be something more along the lines of this. They have top flashing cut into the stucco.
So this is great. It's great that we can see a side-by-side comparison. The top flashing right here, it's called Z-bar, and basically it's called that because it's shaped like a Z. It's all embedded in the stucco. And so the top end of it that we can't see is underneath the stucco, and it's covering up all the fasteners. And it bends down, and it allows for some spacing for us to put step flashing underneath it. If your home has a top flashing like that and it looks like this type of condition, it won't need to be replaced, and you can just have, whenever we do the roof, actually replace the step flashing and obviously the roofing material. If it was corroded and bent and bad, then we'd be talking about a different thing. We'd probably want to tear it out and replace it with Z-bar, do some stucco work.
Step flashing running all the way down. And so if any water is going to be hitting the edge of the roof, it's not just seeping through a crack. It has metal flashing that helps divert it out, and it kicks out at the bottom.
The flashing that we use, and you generally see used, is galvanized, resistant to rust. It is important to consider where your home is. If we're closer to the coast, you can't use galvanized metal because it actually rapidly corrodes. What we use if we're close to the coast is either going to be stainless steel or copper flashings. An important thing to know about copper flashings is it doesn't mix well with other metals. We've seen it on homes that have copper gutters because they like the upgraded look. The metal drip edge on the roof that actually like runs where the gutter is, it has to be copper as well. So since they're all touching and basically the metals don't mix up well, it'll lead to rapid corrosion if you have that. We use like a copper drip edge, so since it's going to be matching with the gutters, it's all consistent. Typically we'll use galvanized. I mean, that's kind of the general thing with homes. Or if a homeowner wants an upgraded building material, a different aesthetic, then you have to be cautious about how you go about that.
That'd be the proper way to do it. And so, we'll be looking at those details when we put together everything for this customer.
When it comes down to like doing this project, it's super important to confirm if there's plywood there. If you're tearing off wood shake, that's the first thing that my mind goes to. Because if you were to tear off and it was not solid like a plywood surface, we couldn't install shingles on that. Typically what we see underneath wood shake is what we call spaced sheathing, which is essentially like 1x6 boards that are all spaced out. And so there's all these gaps in it. We can install on slat boards if they're butted together. That's still considered a solid deck as long as there's not too many gaps. With wood shake, they used to space out the sheathing because that's kind of how the material just functioned and breathed. Even tile roofs, you can see tile roofs that have no solid backing behind it. If that is the case, when we're doing a re-roof, it's a lot of additional wood costs that we want to make sure that we notice on the front end, as opposed to we start tearing off and then find that we're surprised by the fact that there's no plywood. Especially with an older home, you have to make sure that you're accounting for what's underneath, and then also these details as far as like counter flashings and all the sealants and stuff, since it was overlooked in the past. And most of the time when a homeowner calls us out and they have a leak, it's in one of these areas. In a scenario like this, they had a leak and it was due to an improper install. Those are the things that we want to tackle from the front end and make sure that we include those to be fixed when we're doing the re-roof. So just like this homeowner, if you notice a leak or you suspect that your roof is in need of a tune-up, give August Roofing and Solar a call and one of our project consultants will come out and give you all the information you need to make the best decision for you and your home. Give us a call today.